Very pleased not to be joined here at Blogging the Boys by the one and only, the legendary, the internationally famous, quite literally so, in this exact moment that we're chatting. It is the director of football. His title is really expansive. I really am very interested. It is Kyle Brey from the IMG Academy. Kyle, konnichiwa. I hope that that's appropriate at this point in time.
Konnichiwa. Yeah, we're happy to be back domestically. We're here.
It is a really exciting time for you. You're coming back from Japan. We were talking before we started recording, which delayed the recording that you and I are having here today on Monday. Kind of selfish on your part, no big deal. But I was very excited to talk to you because at IMG, you all take care of world-class, world-renowned athletes. That is well understood at this point in time. And Tyler Booker, the first-round draft pick of the Dallas Cowboys, spent I was gonna say a cup of coffee, but maybe like a gallon of coffee with you all, and turned into a gallon of coffee. And so every Dallas Cowboys fan, I would just to kind of give you a full sense of honesty, I think in the first round of the draft, I don't know how you were monitoring it in Japan, with the time difference and everything. Everybody wanted a toy. Everybody wanted a wide receiver. And then after the initial not getting that kind of, washed over everyone and people began to understand who Tyler is, everybody got super pumped. And so everyone is very curious to understand what Tyler was like when he arrived with you all, what you all did to turn him into this monster of a player and really gentleman of a human being, and just kind of tell us anything that we can learn about him.
Well, I can tell you right now, as we were touring around Japan, we were monitoring the draft on social media, and when the Cowboys took Tyler, we said, "Wow!" I said, "I don't know if the fans are going to cheer as loud as he'd like, but man, the cheers will happen later because he's a winner. He's a first-class person." From the moment he set foot on our campus, which started as a defensive lineman, mind you, he's been incredible. He's one of those personalities that when he walks in the room, you can feel it. It lights up. And the way that he practices, plays, and operates on a daily basis, he loves the game at a high level. And when you decide to leave home and come to IMG Academy, the love of the sport is important because training for football is hard, right? It's a miserable sport to train for day in and day out. You have to have a really pure love of the game, and to leave home and to step out of your comfort zone and come to a place that believes in holistic development and gathering student athletes together to push themselves forward. Tyler Booker not only developed at a high level, he was open-minded to switching his position, a lot like J.C. Latham before him, who was a defensive lineman as well, ended up switching their positions and then going to Alabama. And I think that's the fun part for us is we get to collect players here that are like-minded, right? When we interview people and we bring them to campus because they're interested, we really lean in on the social emotional piece. And is this going to be a good fit for you based on the cadence and rigor of our day? We're built very collegiate in the way that we operate. And I think the advantage of being on our campus is it fully prepares you to take that next step, which if you play for Nick Saban, you better be ready as soon as you get on campus because it's pretty intense. And I think it's fun to be able to go through some of those hard growth moments with other athletes that believe and love the game like you do.
I think that, there's so much to everything that you said. And in learning more, I think Tyler was a really well understood draft prospect by a lot of people. First round guys obviously tend to be because you have so much time in the build up to the draft, but particularly because he played for you all and because he played at Alabama. This is somebody with, every bell and whistle that you can possibly hang on a prospect. And so that being said, hearing him speak, I think has kind of added to the building lore of it all. And you talked a lot about, obviously what you all do is really, well understood by everybody at this point who follows the game of football on any level. But some things that Tyler has said that I have found to be rather interesting that I don't know if this works or jives in your experience, but playing for the Cowboys can be a little bit different. But I would offer that playing for Alabama can be a little bit different. I would offer that playing for IMG Academy can be a little bit different. And so you have to be kind of a little bit of a different person to be able to do that. And you talked about the holistic view that it requires or is required to play for you all. I don't want to cast a net on every player that you all have. But this morning, actually, I saw an Instagram reel of a runner who said, running sucks. Like everybody says like, oh, running is amazing and you just find your bliss. And they were like, it can suck sometimes. It's good for you, but it can suck. And I think that what you said kind of works with that. And Tyler, in his opening press conference, talked about, look, when I was very young, I approached this like a job because I was leaving my family, and this was going to be my way to accomplish X, Y, and Z. And it sounds like that approach, that holistic approach, married well with what you all were able to teach him.
100%. He was a picture for what you look for from a mindset perspective that thrives on IMG Academy's campus, thrives on Alabama's campus, and I guess would thrive with the Dallas Cowboys here shortly. And that's something that, not every athlete coming in the door is open-minded to want to take that challenge on. And that's really why this environment exists. And not just in football, in all sports on our campus, right? Empowering student athletes to win their future. It has to be a core belief of every person that steps foot on this campus, and having the open-mindedness of our athletes to be able to take coaching, take criticism, fail at times, and understand that it's growth opportunities so that they can have success later down the road. Tyler Booker was a perfect example of what you would want to be able to have on your campus from growth perspective and open-mindedness to everything that he did. But then also, and you saw this in some of the quotes, the passion, the pure love that he has to go through the hard part of this game is what just fires everybody up. And I know the Cowboys fans, the more they hear him, the more fired up they're going to get.
Yeah, you mentioned you were monitoring the draft on social media from Japan. The main quote that has taken off has been his discussion with Micah Parsons on his show, talking about I'm not certain if you've seen it. Have you seen him saying that he loves to remove the love? Yeah, okay. So I mean there's a, to be a football player, you've got to be a psycho on some level, and to be an elite one. And so I'm curious if he seems like a gentle giant in a full of, heart and love sort of way. But I'm curious if that disposition was obvious from the beginning, or if that was something that evolved throughout his time with you all, that just hunger to destroy people.
Yeah, and look, every football player that we have or in this country that's really talented has a level of love for aggression.
Right.
Being able to become a pro with how you control yourself in between those moments is what turns you into a professional football player, and one that gets drafted in the first round. Being able to come to a place like IMG and then play for a coach like Nick Saban is what allows you to keep the pureness of your aggression and add the professionalism of when that's appropriate and when it's not. And then be able to articulate it at a high level is what's going to pull in fans and teammates.
Yeah, I think that's such a when somebody goes to Alabama or your blue blood, your Power 5 school, whatever, I think people look at it and say like, oh, well, he played high level football at this stage. Well, there's a lot to what happens before that. I mean, not everybody comes from a high school or an academy or whatever the case may be to where they're getting this training and this teaching and this education that early on. And that was something else that Tyler said in his opening press conference, was that he was very accustomed to playing a national schedule and understanding travel, because that's when you become a professional. And I understand you don't have access to NFL money, beforehand, but still NFL, I would call them privileges, blessings, opportunities, having those available at a place like Alabama, at a place like IMG, checking into hotel rooms, like things like that, understanding life on the road. It sounds like he has been able to handle and manage the responsibilities and opportunities that have come with his privilege at being very good at this game.
You're spot on. I mean, look, you put a star on the side of your helmet, there's a level of responsibility that now is incorporated into your life on a daily basis. You put an A on the side of your helmet, the same thing. And when you put an IMG Academy logo on the side of your helmet, you're the biggest show in town everywhere we go. So he's been able to practice the responsibility of representing himself, his family, and national brands since high school. For the Dallas Cowboys, I feel like that's going to be old hat for him. He'll be able to walk right in and be able to run the same play he's been running.
Old hat was nice with the helmet, so it was a nice little metaphor that you tied up well. I don't want to say this as if you don't believe this about every player who rolls through IMG, but was there a moment where, because I'm certain that you probably thought when you first spoke to Tyler that he could go in the first round, he could play at the NFL level, but was there a moment of conviction where you thought, yeah, I was right. I'm glad I trusted myself, whatever, like it could have been in practice. It could have been one of these moments of professionalism that we're talking about, but something that stands out.
Yeah, I think for the when we had the conversation, I'll never forget as a staff when we sat down and really talked about, all right, we believe Tyler and JC Latham both need to be offensive linemen, and we're going to need to tell them that they don't get to chase people and tackle them anymore. They're going to block for the rest of their career. The fact that he was so open-minded, and JC was the same way. They almost like made the decision together as brothers. But the fact that they were open-minded and just, yeah, that sounds great. I'm ready to do it. I mean, Jihad Campbell was the same way when we talked about moving him a little bit from offense and making him an edge player on defense. When guys they just love the game so much that we tell them something, they believe it. And then they get to the point where they go, yeah, you know what? I can do this too. I love it over here too. That's a fun thing for us because those are the guys you love to coach.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the guys you really enjoy being around. And the minute that we switched them, we watched JC and Tyler Booker's development just take a huge growth very quickly as they were able to understand the offensive line at a higher level because their athleticism was already off the charts. So you knew if they could put it together fundamentally and then grow their IQ at the position, us as a staff, you try to be a weatherman with some of this and forecast a little bit. And we looked at each other and we're like, man, they're going to be really good. We just got to support them through the journey. And it's just so cool now to see it go full circle. They're calling each other on draft day. And it's amazing that it was in these offices that we kind of talked about that being the right decision. And then it certainly paid off for both of them.
That's very cool. I mean, I love the NFL, I love college football, but it's just got to be a different type of joy for you all to watch the domino effect when you put the first one up. Like that has got to be a very, very cool experience. And I'm very happy for you and thankful for you all in the service. I hate to call it a service that you provide, but I think you get the picture. Another just kind of really prominent, this is more about the Cowboys as opposed to Tyler specifically. They've really focused on, I don't know how well you've paid attention to their whole draft class, drafting leaders, team captains, things like that. And looking at Tyler, he did an interview with Kay Adams the day of the draft, obviously before he'd been selected by the Cowboys. And she asked him a great question, said, why is your future quarterback the second happiest person to you that you're going to be on this team? He said, because I ride for my guys. Like I take care. He talked about Jalen Milroe. Obviously he said, we go out to dinner and I'm making sure he doesn't get seen. I'm hiding him so he can get, cause I'm not getting as recognized, obviously, whatever the case may be. And so I'm curious if that disposition was obvious, if he was maybe not necessarily a leader or a caretaker of his quarterback or whoever it was at the time, but if that stood, I think you talking about his willingness to move is a great example of that. But if there was, if there were these qualities that he was going to be this pack leader very early on in his career.
Absolutely. He was very verbal, somebody that was willing and able and wanted to step forward. And it's always fun as a football coach or being involved in an organization when your leaders are on the line. And that's probably why his senior year we won a high school football national championship. It's because the first play of the game, he wanted us to run the ball behind him because he believed I could set the tone for the entire football game at the offensive line position if the ball goes right behind me. And I don't think that has changed the entire time he's played the game. But for Tyler, he was somebody that as you watched him end a meeting up here, he'd run down the locker room and get his stuff on, and he'd be jogging out to the field ready to set up pre-practice, and he would make sure that everybody's out. I mean, it was just – he made it easy to coach him. And you really, to be honest, I think we were spoiled because you could just put him in front of the group. Right. He was your coach. You could step back and go, Tyler, you want to talk to, what do you want to say today? What do you want? And he was very honest because he wanted it to work. He wanted everyone to care. He wanted it to be a special year. And the fact that they did it during COVID is something that I'll never forget. I mean, that was an unbelievably challenging time at a boarding school for teenagers to win a high school football national championship during a pandemic. I mean, that's when your leaders really had to step up.
Yeah, I think there's something to this, these last couple of draft classes, kind of where we're at, navigating obviously COVID throughout their high school journeys, but then the dawn of NIL. Like this is a very fascinating group in terms of things they've had to deal with, like life-changing, culture-changing things. My last just kind of big one is, and you kind of touched on it, he talks about how in the locker room, he likes to kind of walk through, the first few plays, and he likes to visualize and things like that, visualize whether it's play action or maybe, like you said, the first play of the game and just mauling somebody and whatever. Is that something that is a Tyler thing? Is that something that you all have taught him? And that's kind of the kind of question within that is, what is something that he does that you feel like, man, we laid the ground for that here? Like, whether it's a fundamental thing or, again, not to take away from him, but something that you all kind of worked on as a collective team with Tyler.
I think hopefully we were able to really impress upon him the fact that development never ends. And if you look at our academy across all the sports, the holistic development and the line to win your future, it's almost like, we're playing a football game today, but it's almost like baseball. It's endless at bats.
Right.
The last rep of that game and the first rep of the next game are all connected. And the fact that you can hone in and win each rep individually and you hear him talk about that one-on-one, winning the one-on-one battle. We tell our players all the time, the collective outcome of the game is going to be based on individuals winning one-on-one battles. And we try to really preach that at a high level so that players can break down this big idea of the scoreboard and the game and the fans and just hone it down to them and another person. And how they beat that guy every single play will allow for the full team to have success. That is the development piece, that we're never there just to win one night. We're there to win everyone's future. And each rep has a journey that it needs to be on. And I think him being able to have that mindset in college beyond high school, maybe that's something we helped him with.
I think that's, you said you're there to help everyone's future. IMG Academy is very famous, obviously, in what you all have done and what you all have accomplished and continue to do so. And I think there is a unique brotherhood to, hey, we're all trying to advance. And the more we can all do individually, we can all eat off of this. And we can all go, maybe it's not to Alabama, but we can all, find our way as long as we bond together and band together at this point in our lives. And that's what makes you all so, uniquely fascinating. My actual last one, and this can be anything, it doesn't have to be, he's an awesome leader, he's an awesome football player, is what is something about Tyler that we haven't seen, that you haven't seen make the national rounds of news and discussion and sound bites? And it can be, the guy eats his hamburgers plain and dry. Like, I mean, we're just kind of, wanting to get to know something cool, fun, interesting about him.
Yeah, I can tell you this, like, he's a great personality in the locker room. Guys love being around him. I mean, they really do attract to him. He's super authentic. And I think even as a young person being around him, the young people are always interesting. You don't quite know what you're going to get when they get up against adversity. The authenticity of who he is as a human being is so refreshing to be around, that the Cowboys and their fans and everyone are going to get to experience him. And it's just so pure that you have to end up rooting for it, because it's the way you want to be. It's the way you hope you can be represented and thought of. And he's a fun one. He's easy to root for. I can tell you that.
Yeah, to that point, during his press conference, he told his younger brother, and I just loved it. He made it a point to look at him and talk to him and said, you can be up here too, as long as you listen to mommy and daddy. And I loved that he didn't feel any embarrassment or shame to call them mommy and daddy in front of his younger brother. I mean, just kind of spoke to him the way he would in their room together in front of the entire world, which, to your point, kind of speaks to his authenticity. Kyle, this has been wonderful, and I just would love to hear anything and everything that IMG has going on. I know you all are never sleeping and constantly working to create the Tyler Bookers of the world for the Dallas Cowboys, and hopefully nobody else. But if it winds up being everybody else, that's fine too.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on.
Thanks a lot.